Make something out of nothing. Well, the last few weeks I've been wanting to do a podcast about the Beatles. Just before Christmas and beyond, I just finished watching the Get Back movie on the Disney Channel, and that movie goes for about 6 hours, broken up into three separate parts. But what I discovered about watching that movie was how the Beatles got their start, and a lot of it is unreleased stuff made into a movie by director Peter Jackson, who did the Lord of the Rings movies. But I watched the whole 6 hours of the Get Back movie, and I listened to a lot of Beatles stuff when growing up, because Dad was a huge Beatles fan. But watching that movie gave me a new appreciation of the Beatles. I know they're one of the biggest bands in the world, but you could see why, because it had George Harrison, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and Ringo Starr. Well, watching that movie with Ringo Starr, he was basically in the background, sitting on the drums, just watching George Harrison, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney just do their work. But it gave me a new appreciation of the how hard the Beatles did work over the years, because it's quite easy to see that Paul McCartney was the teacher of all of the other three, because and also John Lennon was a talented musician in his own right. They've all gone on to being musicians in their own right, but you can actually appreciate the hard work that John Lennon and Paul McCartney did, because without those two, there would be no Beatles. And it was quite interesting for me to see also. Uh, Watching that Get Back documentary, Paul McCartney was writing the stuff for his other band, Wings, too. So I just have so much appreciation of all four of the Beatles, and it's quite easy to see that even back when the Beach Boys were popular, even they said when they released Sergeant Pepper's that they wouldn't be able to beat that, because it was Sergeant Pepper's was such a great album. And listening to Sergeant Pepper's, you can tell that it's just a continuous story just through music. But just by watching, I've watched 8 days a week, and the DVD that came out a few years ago, watching the Get Back documentary on Disney Channel, that's given me more appreciation of. I've always had an appreciation of the Beatles music, but watching that, it sort of has given me an appreciation of that the Beatles actually did, because they did work bloody hard. And you can still see why their music is still popular, even though there is three. Yeah. It was a shame that John Lennon had to die, because in his own right he did some great music. All the combination of Lennon McCartney and the combination of Paul McCartney and John Lennon will always live on, because between those two, watching the documentary of Get Back, you could see how hard those two actually worked. All four of them worked very hard, but in their own right. So if you have the Disney Channel, I do recommend you watch the Get Back documentary, because I didn't realise that it went for so long. And plus, on the Disney Channel, it's broken up into three different 2 hours of different sections. So it's just an appreciation of seeing how hard the Beatles worked when they were producing music, and you can see why they were they are the best band in the world. Um, when you have people like the Beach Boys saying that we can't compete with Sergeant Pepper's, what does that say about the awesome foursome that was the Beatles? Um, so for now, yeah, it was, I know, I watched a 6 hour documentary about the Beatles when I was involved making my documentary about my life. But watching the Beatles documentary, it just gives me a new appreciation of Beatles music. I've always liked the Beatles music, but it's just an appreciation of how hard they actually worked when they did put music together. So, and it is. I don't know if it's a good example of putting a documentary together, but watching a 6 hour documentary about the Beatles, that's a good practice of putting documentaries together. I mean, it's just four band members sitting around coming up with ideas of what sort of music they want to record and all that sort of stuff. But it just if you aren't a Beatles fan by the end of watching it, you sort of get an appreciation on how hard they actually work. But for now, it's nearly 10 minutes by this recording of this podcast. So, so I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to my podcast about the Beatles. Thank you very much.